Has a man ever tried to manipulate you? I'm sure the chances are you've had that experience at least once. And if you haven't, there's a very good chance you may come across it at some point. The unfortunate reality in life is there are people out there who want to play games. There are people out there, or more specifically, men out there who want to take advantage of you, who are just trying to use you and get what they can out of you. And in doing this, there are a lot of these toxic individuals who have learned how to play the game in a way that gets the results they're looking for. How to have you feeling foolish, feeling used, feeling drained by what they've put you through. All right? And so you've got to start to understand, if you don't have a clear enough picture of it already, how these men move. What are the ways they will try to manipulate you so that you don't fall for the games and the tricks? Now, again, I always feel the need to mention, please do not take this as all men are manipulative. Please understand there are always great, awesome, authentic men out there. But I'm not blind to the reality that there are wolves in sheep's clothing, as well as flat out wolves waiting and just looking to, again, take advantage of you at any chance they can get. So let's go through some of the things you need to be mindful of. And this is in no particular order. The first one on the list I want to mention is that a manipulative man, or a way that a man will try to manipulate you, is by controlling your environment. Now, what I mean more specifically with controlling your environment is controlling the influences in your environment, all right? So toxic men tend to be, if not always, controlling men. One of the reasons why they must have control is because they have to also limit who can get in the way of them being able to manipulate you, or them being able to control you and have you do as they say, of anyone trying to give you clarity and help you break free from their nonsense. So these manipulative men will survey your environment, your friends, your family. What are you paying attention to? What are you watching? And now try to eliminate these things. Some of these men will make issues. For example, let's say you have a good friend, and that good friend is usually calling out his nonsense. And he knows, because maybe in you talking to him, you slip, you let it be known that she said such and such. All right, well, now he's going to put a target on her back and try to cause problems with her so that you will stop talking to her, that you will stop engaging, or he will simply try to not allow you to hang out with friends as much. Now, of course, some of you are saying, who the hell is he to not allow me? But the reality is that many women have found themselves in situations where, yes, they've succumbed to this man ordering them around and putting up restrictions on their life. All right. And so, of course, you shouldn't be allowing that to happen. But if you find yourself in that situation, or if you see that he is attempting to do this, you've got to be aware. Now, here's the thing, and I guess this kind of makes it a little tricky. I do agree with the idea that we have to be mindful of the outside noise we allow into our lives in various aspects of our lives, including our relationships. And we have to be very careful to invite third parties and unhealthy opinions into our life. So there is a responsibility that you have to play that, okay, when I have an issue with this man, with this person I'm in a relationship with, that I try to address and resolve this with him without bringing in all these other people that can make it a lot more difficult. And sometimes that friend of yours is a legit problem. Sometimes they're the one trying to sabotage your relationship, all right? Not trying to put negative things in your head about your friends, but it can happen. It has happened to many women. So you have to be mindful of this. But I think the difference between the manipulative man and the man who is just concerned because you have a legit negative influence is, one, is he only going after that one person? Or is he like this in general, trying to restrict you with who you engage with? All right. Because if he's a genuine guy, he's only concerned about the person who's causing a problem. But the manipulative, controlling guy doesn't want you around anybody. Doesn't want you around anyone that he can perceive as a threat, even before they've officially to him become a threat. All right. Or maybe a single friend who he feels like could fill your head up with things that it's going to make it harder for him to control you. So it's an understanding that difference is how you're going to see which one he is, as well as how is he in the other aspects of the relationship. The manipulative man doesn't just stop at trying to control your environment. He takes it much further than that. And we're going to talk about some of the other things that he will probably do. Whereas the genuinely good guy who just has a genuine issue with that one influence or more than one is a great partner otherwise. All right. Is doing his part. He just has identified that this influence is causing a problem. So you have to look at the overall picture when figuring out which type of man you're dealing with. But yes, manipulative men will try to control your environment, friends, family, where you hang out, all of it. All right. So now the next way a man or men try to manipulate women is by love bombing. All right. Now, if you're not familiar with the word or the term love bombing, I have a video about it that you can check out. But to kind of give a brief overview of it, love bombing is essentially when the man is coming hard and coming fast. No pun intended. And he's trying to shower you with all this love and attention and doing so much. He's basically trying to overwhelm you with this to reel you in. But then he's not going to keep this up. All right. He's doing this just to get you. And then once he has you, the ball game's going to change. Now, here's the thing that we have to be very careful with this love bombing label, because I've seen situations where two people felt an amazing connection. The love, the interest, the desire, everything was genuine. There was no plan to manipulate. It was coming from a real place. But in that realness, it still came strong. It still was hard. It still was a lot. All right. And so when you're trying to figure out, okay, is this a love bomb or is this real? The question you have to ask yourself is, how do I really feel about him? And what I mean by that is not by what he does for me, about him. Because what happens in the love bombing scenario, and whether we call it that or any other name, a lot of people get attached to what the other person is doing for them. So for example, there's a lot of women who they meet this guy who treats them amazing, right? And it could be love bombing or not, but because of his treatment and his treatment being better than anything she's ever experienced before, she's drawn in and becomes attached or wants to hold on to this guy. But if you sat down and really talked to her and you separated all this fluff that he adds to the relationship, she's not really into him as a person. They don't really connect on a deeper level. They don't actually share the same values. She may not even in some cases be very attracted to him. All right. But he's doing things for her that it's so nice and it feels good to have these things done for you. So you start to confuse that with love on your end. That's not love. So the love bomber is a one-sided affair. It is one individual doing so much, trying to proclaim all this love. But when you dig deep inside of yourself, you're like, I'm enjoying this, but I'm not really into them like that. Whereas when it's a genuine situation, no, you're into them. You're feeling as strongly for them as they feel for you. You may not be expressing it as loudly and as clearly as they are, maybe because you're scared, you have some walls up, you're trying to be cautious, whatever the case may be. And that's a whole nother discussion as to, I don't want you to be that way, but it happens, right? But even though you're not letting it all out, you still feel it from within. And so when you feel that genuine desire, that genuine interest, that genuine love and connection, then we don't have to label him as a love bomber. All right. But yes, manipulative men will try to hit you strong and fast with it to just overwhelm you. And before you know it, you're caught up in a situation that you have a hard time walking away from. All right, so let's keep this moving. And now the next way that men try to manipulate women is with anger, or what I like to call turning the tables on you. All right. And it's usually a combination of the two. So to give an example, and I've seen this story play out many times, woman's in a relationship, and she's with this guy and everything seems to be going well. But there's something in her, and I have to say that because in most cases, there is intuition, there's a red flag, there's something in that woman saying something's not right, okay? But for many reasons, the woman tries to look past that, rationalize past it, won't explore it, because she wants to hold on to the relationship for, again, various reasons. Eventually, one day, the phone is left open, the phone that typically is not available to be looked through. The woman gets an inclination or curiosity or whatever, goes through it, finds some stuff. The manipulative man, what happens in this situation is you confront him, and what does he do? Rather than trying to explain, apologize, own up, anything, he flips it on, how dare you go through my phone? You're the problem. I can't trust you. Oh, you see, you don't trust me. Boom, boom, boom. He will completely turn the tables on you. He will deflect the issue and put the spotlight on you. And to up the ante, he will not just flip it on you. He will use the anger. All right? Because the reality is that anger is a very effective intimidation tactic. I don't say effective to make it an okay thing or a good thing. I'm saying effective for a lot of people, it works. When they get mad at their partner, all right, the partner goes into defense mode. And so now, if you're accusing him of doing wrong, he gets mad at you, you lose sight of holding him accountable to what he did, and you get caught up in trying to defend yourself. And the manipulative man knows that. And he knows by the time you guys are ending that conversation, it will be all about you trying to clear your name rather than what he did. And now he won. And now at that point, he's just hoping to get to the next day and y'all just drop the whole situation. Or guilt trip you with the fact that, but yeah, you went through my stuff. Yeah, you don't trust me, whatever, so on and so forth. So it can happen in various ways, but you have to be mindful of that. One thing I always tell people, and specifically I tell you as women, is that be aware in your discussion with this man that you are not losing sight of the topic at hand. Do not get caught up in trying to defend yourself. So basically, if he says, you don't trust me, how dare you go through my phone? Even if you feel bad because you used to tell him you would never do such a thing and that you trust him, right? Then simply say, you know what? You're right. I apologize for going through your phone. It was wrong, but that doesn't change the issue now. So it's like, okay, we can own up to the wrong. Let's diffuse that right there. Because if you get caught up in, well, no, what you would do, see, now you give him ammunition to keep going, to keep pushing, to make the argument all about you. But once you say, okay, it was wrong, you're right, done. But we still have this issue. Now what? He can't keep digging on you about you already owned up to it. It is what it is now. So you got to learn how to, when they flip the tables, you got to flip it right back. Keep it at the topic at hand. And that way you're going to expose, will he own up? Will he address this? What's going to happen here? And what you need to do. Otherwise, you will fall victim and you will find yourself in a never-ending cycle, because once you give in to the anger and the turning of tables, you better believe he's going to use it again. Once a manipulative man sees that a certain tactic works with you, he will continuously implement it until it can no longer work. And then he will pivot and use a different tactic to try to get you back. So don't get caught up in that, in him doing that. All right, so we got a few more to go. And so next up, another way that men try to manipulate women is with good sex. I had to laugh, I'm sorry, but as always, we gotta talk about it. So let me start off by saying this. I remember one time a friend of mine's, I'm kind of ashamed to say it, but he was talking about his sexual experience one time, not in great detail, so I don't want y'all to think that. But he was like, man, I went in there like a man who needed a place to stay. And so it was such a funny statement, but it's so real. The fact that, listen, men who have something to gain here, they need you for something. And that's why they would even manipulate you. It could be a place to stay. It could be money. It could be whatever. You co-signing on a car. Who knows, right? All of a sudden, become great performers in the bedroom. and I've heard plenty of women question, like, why are so many toxic men good in bed? Now, there's a lot to discuss there. I actually did a video on it a long time ago, but the point I want to hone in here on is, here's the thing. Being good in the bedroom, most importantly, there's several factors, but one of the biggest factors, if not the biggest, is the man's willingness to please you. Be patient with you. You know what I'm saying? Be passionate, be sensuous, all these things. One of the reasons why a lot of men are not that good is because they get selfish in the bedroom. They get in their own way. They're more concerned about what they're gonna get. But the man who's trying to manipulate you, especially a man who is desperate for whatever he's trying to gain, like I said, a place to stay, money, whatever, knows he has to make sure you're good. So he comes into that bedroom on his best behavior because he knows this is what's going to work. And as I've said this in another video, where as bad as this sounds, it doesn't even take the man being great to get a lot of women caught up. All right. There are tons of examples and stories of mediocre sex still getting women attached to men for various reasons. So the man who implements this tactic understands if he could just do a pretty good job, yes, that can cause this woman to be more blind to the issues, blind to his manipulation, and allow him to get what he wants out of her. This hit my spirit, so I feel the need to say it. And this is especially true if he senses desperation on your part. All right? Meaning, if you as a woman do not exude confidence about yourself, you become prey to a manipulative man because he feels like he's going to have an easier time getting you to do what he wants. He's going to have an easier time playing you because I always say desperation, though it may not feel like desperation to you, the vibe of desperation is what leads more women to getting played than anything else. All right? Desperate to have a man there, desperate to have companionship, desperate to feel an ounce of what she wants to view as love, or just if it feels something like love, whatever the case may be. Now, I don't want to use desperate in some derogatory way that makes you feel bad if you've been feeling that way. But I want to use that word for you to be aware that if you are crossing that line of desperation, we've got to get out of that, because if you stay there, you are more likely to fall victim to these things. All right. And yes, sex is one of the ways that he will find his way in and stay there, because a lot of people, a lot of women have gotten attached to men because of sex and have allowed that man to stay way longer than he should have. And you have to understand what you can handle and what you can't. And that's why avoiding getting intimate with someone, especially when you don't know what he's about, when it's not a committed relationship, is very, very risky business. It leads to a lot of problems for a lot of women. So you've got to be careful and know yourself well enough. Yes, we can talk about waiting till marriage and all these things from a spiritual perspective, but as I always say, I know many are engaging regardless of that. So we still have to talk about what happens in that context. All right. So sexually is another way men will try to manipulate a woman. All right, so now before I move on to the next one, real quick, people are always asking me about coaching. Well, here is your opportunity to have your questions personally answered by me twice a month on live coaching calls in my special coaching program, Manifest the Man God Has for You. Join today. Click the link in the description or in the comment section. Not only are you going to have your questions answered, but you're going to learn how to heal. You're going to learn how to tap into your feminine energy. You're going to learn how to hear God more clearly, finding your purpose, meeting more relationship-minded, quality men. All of that and more is included. Thousands of women's lives are being changed. Your life can be next. Take advantage. Again, go to receivingmyblessings.com. All right, so next up on the list of ways a man will try to manipulate a woman is by playing on your sympathy, or even playing on your nature to nurture. Okay? So a lot of men have played on sympathy as well as guilt trip women with the whole, oh, you know, you're not there for me when I'm down, or you need to be able to build with me, and all these different things, right? And I'm not, again, I never want to make it seem like it's an absolute thing that every man who believes in building together and being there for him even when he's broken, homeless or whatever, is a guy who's simply trying to manipulate you. However, in most cases, it's not coming from a genuine place, all right? Because the man who is genuinely wanting to be with you, genuinely having feelings for you, genuinely in love with you, wants to pour into you. And if anything, when he is incapable of doing that, it will actually cause many to be hesitant to want to move forward. All right? But those who will overlook it, it's because they're desperate to gain what you can provide. And so now, yes, they will use the sympathy of needing your help. And if they just had a good woman and all these things would be so much better. But you got to be careful with that, because it's not your job to make him into a man. It's not that I am so against building with a man, but please understand the difference between building with him and carrying him on your back. All right. An analogy I like to use is it's almost like a man or woman building a house, and the woman's getting the bricks and the cement and all the tools, and she's starting to lay the bricks and build a house. And the dude sitting in a lawn chair drinking some lemonade talking about, you missed the spot. Like, he is not equally engaging in the building. That's not what we're supposed to be doing. Now, if it's a together thing, if we're doing this and mutually putting forth the effort, if he's finding ways to contribute, to compensate for where he cannot contribute, I'm cool with that to a certain extent. I'm cool with that. All right. But you got to be very careful, because there's a lot of men who are just using women as a stepping stool, as a way to get to the next level. And once they're there, they're gone. They're on to the next. And so you have to be mindful of what's really happening here. Is this a genuine man or not? And again, what will differentiate the genuine man from the user, from the manipulator, is the man who wants to still pour into you in many other ways, still makes an effort, still tries, and also recognizes when he's draining and taking too much from you. All right? That's a man who loves you is not trying to do that. All right? So you just got to be very careful with that. But it's not just playing on your sympathy in that regard, or playing to your desire to nurture. What I feel the need to bring up is also sympathy in the sense of, and this is an example, but let's just use depression. All right? Again, it's an example. We can go many different directions. But there are men, there are people out there who use mental health and the woe is me mentality and creating this gloomy picture to gain your sympathy so that you won't leave them, so that you'll deal with them and all these things. Now, it isn't to say that there aren't genuinely depressed people. But my argument is always, it's one thing to be depressed or whatever issue they're going through. It's another thing to not be doing anything about it. To expect you to deal with them, to suck it up because they're struggling, when they're unwilling to take any steps to improve, to me is unacceptable. Because now you are becoming an enabler to their behavior. You are now saying it's okay to remain depressed. It's okay to remain in this victim mentality. It's okay to do nothing because I should be expected to love you through it and stay here no matter what. I want to say a curse word, but I'm not going to say a curse word right now. All right. But I think you feel my energy. No, I'm sorry. No, that's not how it's supposed to work. And it's one thing to go through a tough moment and a small phase of struggle, but to remain there is not okay. So again, you can be loving, encouraging, supportive, but there has to be action taken. And at the very least, let's just say, okay, he needs a little bit of time. Okay, we can agree to what is your genuine limit? All right, it's like, and again, this is just an example. If you as a woman say, okay, you know what? I can genuinely deal with this for 30 days and still be the best woman I need to be and be happy here. Of course, it may not be as full as happy as I want to be because we have to work through this, but I can deal with this for 30 days and be fine. But after 30 days, you know this is going to very negatively impact you in a way that you can't show up the way that you need to show up. And that you are going to start to have resentment or anger or whatever creep in. Then you've got to be able to say to that man, listen, I can work with you up to this point, but after that, we got to do something. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. He has to understand at some point he has to step it up. He has to work on these things. And there is some kind of solution to at least improve the situation. Now, of course, there may be exceptions that some scenarios are just, I don't know how to explain it, but it's just nothing you can do. Let's say they were in a tragic accident. It's a very different thing. But let's stop acting like that's the norm. Those are very rare exceptions. It's a different story. I understand. Outside of that, no, it's not okay. All right, so we got two more. And this next one, I'm going to run through a little quick because I really want to spend more time on the last one. So the next thing that the man will try to do to manipulate women, to manipulate you, is gaslight you. All right. So again, we're going to make this very fast. Gaslighting, for those of you who don't know, essentially is trying to make you question your own thoughts, your own perceptions, what you're seeing, basically make it seem like you're the crazy one. You didn't see that. That's not what happened. What are you talking about? You're tripping. You know what I'm saying? Like, just completely dismiss you and have you questioning yourself. It's very unhealthy. It's messed up. It's just plain and simple wrong, but it is what a manipulative man will do to you. And so you've got to pay attention to when you got to stand strong in what you do know. It's one thing to be, let's say, accusing him of something that you're not even sure about. All right. And he's telling you, no, you're wrong. You're tripping. Okay. Because if you're not sure, if you don't have some level of certainty within you, there's some wiggle room on his end. But when it's something that you know for a fact, like for example, you know for a fact, you just saw this man with another woman, lip locked, hands all over her, whatever. You know for a fact it was him. You can't let this man tell you, nah, you tripping, that wasn't me. You saw his license plate, you saw his car, you saw so many details that told you this is him. Don't let him tell you that you're crazy and didn't see what you saw. You've got to stand strong in your truth, but not just that, not let people dismiss how you feel. All right. It doesn't mean that how we feel is always accurate to what's going on, but it should not be dismissed. All right. He has to be able to discuss it with you and work through it with you rather than just push it to the side. Now, I will say that dismissal of feelings is not necessarily an automatic manipulative thing because I think some men are very unaware and not in tune with their partner. Some men are processing things only through a logical mind and they're not connecting with where you are emotionally. So it's a lack of emotional intelligence on their part. It's not a blatant trying to manipulate you. But again, this is why we have to always look at the overall picture. The manipulative man has more than just this trait. The genuine good man is good, but he may struggle in this specific area. All right. Of, again, not being dismissal. And you have to talk to him about that. But if he loves you, if he cares about you, you expressing to him clearly that this is a problem will at least get him to start to improve and be mindful in that area. All right. And last but not least, possibly the most important thing on this list that I need you to hear. A big way a man will try to manipulate a woman is by destroying your self-esteem. All right. So remember when I said earlier that desperation it's a magnet to manipulative men. And when you're not exuding a certain level of confidence, these types of men view you as prey, as an easier target. So now what happens is a lot of men who are like this, even if you started off confident, if they see an area they can exploit to destroy your confidence, they will do that. They will do that because they understand that by removing your self-esteem and your confidence, you will become easier to control. You will have a harder time walking away from him. You will be more likely to sacrifice your standards, your values, and all the things that are important to you. So you've got to pay attention to where a man is trying to attack you in that way. Now, there's unfortunately, I don't want to get too deep into it, but there are some men who are taught this as a tactic to basically, and even just not from I want to manipulate this woman standpoint, even as far as just getting the woman. Like, I don't know if some of y'all have ever heard it, but some men will say, like, the worse you treat her, the more you can keep her. All right. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that whatsoever, but I understand where that mindset comes from. And some of it, to be honest, comes from the fact that men see other men who are trash, who are toxic, who are mistreating you, get to keep the girl. Whereas they see the good guy who's trying to love a woman get burned and get played. And so now they start to equate this to, okay, well, treat her like trash, and you will have her more under the, how should I say? You basically have more control over her, or you will have her wanting you more. All right. Again, not going to get into how that's bad advice, why it's bad advice, and all that. But I am letting you know this mindset exists, whether it's from just a matter of getting you, or again, the manipulative man who understands this strategy is going to make it easier. So when you start to notice that a man is trying to make you less confident instead of more, red flag, big issue. We need to immediately, and again, I always say address it because I want to stay consistent with my message, because I don't believe in just running from a red flag. I believe in addressing it. And if it's not corrected, then we let go of the person or we remove ourselves from the situation. But you address it because, as crazy as it sounds, sometimes it's an unhealthy mindset that can be corrected. Other times it is a blatant attempt to manipulate and control you. And so you should only embrace a man who pours into you in a way that makes you better, that makes you more confident and certain of yourself, or encourages you to do things to build your confidence. That's a man who loves and cares about you. But the man who wants to take that away from you, he's trying to manipulate you.